All right. Hello, friends. Thanks for being here. Ruth and Nick. And today we're given just some perspectives and sharing some of our experience regarding footwear and specifically our daily drivers, which are the shoes that we wear most frequently for most things, and also court shoes. Ruth plays tennis and now plays pickleball. And I play a lot of pickleball. And so shoes for the court end up being really important. So we're going to talk about what shoes we wear, why, and maybe some specific considerations about what to look for in a court shoe and why it's important, or why, I can share why it's important for me to wear shoes on the court because I tried it barefoot and it works for doubles, but not for singles. And so we're just going to, yeah, that's what we're going to share today.
Mhm.
So I'm going to kick us off with talking about daily drivers. So my daily driver that I gravitate towards wearing most frequently for most things. So this is like out for a walk, out for a hike, going on a trip. I've often now I've started to do this thing where I bring one pair of shoes on a trip. I recently went away for 3 months, and I brought one pair of shoes. They were Earth Runners because I had Shamas for a long time. I wore through them. They actually lasted longer than what I would have expected for the amount of kilometers I put on them. But I kept repairing them every time they would bust open, and I just got tired of. I had to repair them much more frequently, and so I needed a new pair. And Earth Runners were the only ones that could come to me in time. So I used Earth Runners, which just recently broke. But Shamas are my favorite pair of sandals. They feel the best. I think they look the most minimal. They're very simple, and just to fit and feel. It literally feels like I'm wearing nothing on my foot, but it protects the sole of my foot, which is the primary reason I wear footwear, the only reason I wear footwear. So, why do I use Shamas? So, I think three main things. Number one, they feel the best. The way that the straps connect and orient and are able to be adjusted, I get to the best feeling adjustment the quickest. And they also just feel like I'm wearing nothing on my feet. And that's really important to me. So that's number one is they feel the best and they protect my feet. Number two is they handle any kind of condition. So if I'm in mud, they're super easy to wash. The Ultra Grip sole, they come in leather and then this material called Ultra Grip. Ultra Grip doesn't get slippery at all when it's wet, which is different from Earth Runners, which I find do get quite slippery when it's wet outside. Um, and then the third one is that they are literally I can literally put two Shamo sandals folded over in a fanny pack and bring them with me anywhere I want to go. I could literally put them in my pocket. And I often do put them in my back pocket and walk around barefoot and put the sandals on when I need them. So I think from the standpoint of fit and feel, um, you know, durability, and just being able to wear them, especially in wet conditions or in all conditions. I would say so fit and feel, durability slash washability, and then portability. Shamas are the best shoe that I've found. I also love the fact that they're made in the United States in Santa Cruz, California, by humans who actually love what they do. I've spoken with Josh, the guy who started Shama Sandals. He's an amazing human. And so not only do I think they objectively make the best product that I've ever worn, I also really align with their values, the reason they do what they do, and the fact that it's done domestically, not in some factory across the ocean by someone who I don't know what their conditions are like when they're working there, or if they even like their
Mhm.
job. I know the people who make shamas make them in the United States. They love their job, they love what they do, and they live their work, and they're active people. And so that's why I use shamas. I use the Warriors with the Ultra Grip footbed. That's why I use them as my daily drivers. And one last thing I would say is your daily drivers, the shoes, the footwear you wear most frequently, has the largest impact on your foot health. And so they are the most important ones to make sure, in terms of the most important shoes you're ever going to wear. And the reason it's so important for them to be natural are your daily drivers. And once you find a brand or a style that you really like, I've personally found it really hard to switch, and I end up using it for everything,
Mhm.
except for really specific sport things, like playing pickleball, for example. It's really hard. I've tried it, and it just doesn't work very well to play pickleball in sandals, just because of the sheer stress.
Mhm.
Um, and I think there was one more thing I was going to say, but I'll add it after if I remember it. So, what are your daily drivers, and why do you choose the shoes that you choose?
Okay, well, I second everything you're saying about Shama sandals, but I'm newer to them. The first thing I want to say is that I really like to be barefoot whenever possible. And the one thing, so I switched to natural footwear probably 3 years ago when I found the Foot Collective. But I always wore, I just got rid of all my heels, all my cowboy boots, everything, and I switched to a zero shoe. But recently, but so, and I mean, I switched to like tennis shoes. So I was wearing tennis shoes to weddings and tennis shoes,
Nice.
it was like, okay, you gotta graduate to a shoe that's a little bit like where you can dress it up a little more. But I realized that I like sandals because of you. I like to have my whole upper foot completely free because the stronger that and more resilient my feet get, the less shoe I want. So
Mm,
I didn't really know
yes.
that that was going to happen, Nick. And so, okay, so the first shoe I got is this, it's called the Seaside Twill Feel Grounds. And I got this because I wanted something that looked cute for summer because I'm a lady and sometimes I want to be fashionable. And so I got this, and this is my go-to daily driver for probably 4 months. And what I love about it is that it has a cork sole, which feels fantastic on my feet. And it's about I think it's like 5 millimeters thick. So I can feel the ground really good underneath me. And it's so little material everywhere, but it still looks like a fashionable shoe. And it feels like, I realized that it feels like, well, I'm stepping on the soulmate, because of the cork
Mm.
insole. Anyway, I really like this, but recently had the opportunity to go to Santa Cruz where they make shamas and take a tour around there. And while we were there, they made me a pair of super browns. So I have my
Nice.
first pair of shama sandals, and like I was telling you, I just want to snuggle up with them. They're so delicious and they're cute, and they're also completely utilitarian. So these are super easy because I can slip them on and off, and that's a big deal for me because I walk in the house, I take off my shoes so much because I want to be barefoot so much that on and off is really important. And so I
Yep.
can slip them on and off really easy when I'm walking around if I need to. But now the Shama sandal is so beautiful. And so all of these parts are replaceable. And then this is all brown German made, I think it's like German made cow leather. I really love these, but I can wear them for fancy and for hiking, and they have this power strap on there that gives you like more stability around the ankle. When I put this on, I never want to take it off. I forget that I even have a shoe on. So those two, the Feel Ground Seaside Twill and this Shama Super Brown with a power strap, and then without the power strap for super lightweight, are my daily drivers.
Amazing. And the two things, so I completely agree about the ease of putting on and off. That's a big deal for me as well. Because same thing, I take my shoes off very frequently. I only wear them when I need to. And sometimes even when I do wear them to go on a walk for a period of that walk, I'll take them off. And so being able to slip them on, slip them off super quick is really important. The thing I love about sandals too is I don't wear socks and I hate when my feet sweat and because eventually they stink. And just the idea that my feet can be open to the air and have zero lateral compressive force because there's nothing on the
Yes.
lateral sides of my foot in a sandal is just like amazing. And the thing I wanted to say before is this idea that I use these daily drivers for the majority of the year in Canada, even for the colder fringe season. So everything but deep winter, everything above 0 degrees Celsius, I basically wear that sandal, even when it's like 5 degrees or even 0 degrees in Canada. Um, Most people look at me like I'm crazy walking around in sandals when there is some snow on the ground. But what I find is there's this misconception that in order to keep your feet warm in winter, you have to have a bunch of insulation. And what I've found is that actually what brings blood flow to the extremities to stop them from getting cold is blood flow. Or what brings blood flow to the extremities is muscles sort of sucking that blood into the distal extremities. And it only does that if you're using the muscles. And what I found is that the more insulated a boot is, the more compressive it is around your foot, the less your foot's able to move, and the less, because there's so much pressure all around the foot because of all this insulation they try and jam into winter boots, it actually doesn't allow any blood flow to your distal extremities. So it doesn't matter that it insulates your foot. If no blood flow is going there, your foot's going to get really cold. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is the more you use your feet, the more time you spend barefoot, the more you're in natural footwear, the more muscle you develop in your feet, the more blood flow you bring to your feet, and the less cold your feet get. So you become capable of wearing something like a minimal sandal, which is virtually nothing on your foot, just
Mhm.
protects the sole of your foot. for much longer periods of time into colder weather than what most people would think. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, the Shamas are my daily drivers and they're awesome.
Yeah, and one last thing I want to say about, well, two things I want to say is that you don't ever have any issue of whether the shoe is wide enough in the right place when you're wearing a sandal. That's
Right.
one other thing. Like I've been kind of, there's like some sneakiness around, like when I wear shoes, even natural shoes, I still realize like I have a pair of shoes that I wear where I can kind of see through, even though they're natural shoes, I can see through the top of my forefoot, and it's so sneaky pushing my toe inward. So the
Mm.
sandal, the wearing the natural, I mean, wearing sandals, shamas, and the field grounds, I can see exactly what my toes are doing and how they're splayed at all times. And I can visually see and work, just move them all the time. It's so great. And I never knew I
Yep.
loved sandals because I never used to like to have my toes exposed, Nick. I never ever
Mm.
have worn sandals. I've never worn Birkenstocks. I've never really worn flip-flops. I've never liked to have my feet exposed, and now I can't get enough of it.
Amazing. Tan your
Then,
feet and you can move your toes too, which you can't
yes,
do in most shoes, even natural
no,
footwear. It's like you can't articulate your toes, splay your toes.
no.
You can in sandals, which is kind of cool.
And then the last thing I want to say is I can attest to being in the factory, being where they make the shoes by hand. When I went to the factory in Santa Cruz, Josh sewed these while I watched him. And then their
That's awesome.
family members and kids, and it's like such a great atmosphere, and it's right there. And the one crazy thing I want to say is that in Santa Cruz, where they make these shoes, locally they don't even know about Shama sandals. And that's
Mm.
something I'm going to unpack with Josh in a podcast soon. Because
Awesome.
that's interesting, right? About like you have this like artisanal style of shoemaking right in your backyard, and the community and Santa Cruz community is outdoorsy as F. And there's no reason why like people shouldn't be like, you shouldn't see them everywhere, and hardly anybody
I
knows
agree.
about them.
And it's super weird when they're making 1,000 pairs to send over to Germany and they're a
Yes.
world-class footwear manufacturer. They make some of the best elite level sandals in the world. And yet the neighborhood around them doesn't even know they exist, doesn't even know the power of that kind of footwear. So
Yes.
probably a big opportunity for them.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about court shoes. Did you
Okay.
have any questions about sandals, daily drivers?
Yeah, I did, but I lost it because we kind of zoomed, and it was great. But I did have a question, but it'll come back to me.
If it comes back to you, you can ask. But let's dive into court shoes because
Okay.
we're 10 minutes in. Ruth and I had a mission of doing this in 20 minutes, and we're 11 minutes in, so we'll see how we do.
Yes.
So court shoes. I started playing pickleball probably about 3 months ago, and part of the initial experiment was like, I wonder if I could play pickleball barefoot. And so initially, when I was training, doing some agility stuff, I was kind of testing my feet, like I would do running drills, lateral, forward, back and forth, and just see how my feet did, and they did pretty good. But what I found was that when I wanted to change in direction, like really like accelerate, decelerate, switch direction, and accelerate again, I was limited in how much I can do completely barefoot because the skin on the bottom of my foot just couldn't tolerate that for very long. Um, and so in training, it was fine. When I was playing against beginners, it was fine because it didn't make me run that much. And in doubles, actually, it was also fine as long as it wasn't crazy hot and I wasn't playing a huge amount of games. So if it was like a game or two or like a best of three match and I was playing doubles where it's more quick pivot reaction time in pickleball doubles, I was okay. But as soon as it came to playing singles against good players, I realized that I needed shoes because the first time I got a blister, I was like, all right, well, that's the limit of my tolerance. And that wasn't even that hard of a game. And anytime it was super sunny and the ground was super hot, I also had an issue with just the ground being too hot and irritating my feet. My feet would feel super raw the rest of the day. So shoes were important. And then the mission was, well, what shoes should I wear? So I actually started wearing a pair of Vivo Stealth 3s, which did okay. And then Tolos came on the radar. So the Tolos Archetype 1 is like a small startup company out of Colorado. Evan Ritt is the guy who created the company. So he sent me a demo pair. I started using them and I used them for pickleball and I loved them. I didn't have any issues with hot spots or areas that didn't feel good. They were foot shaped. They were super flexible, super minimal. The sole was durable to the point where it's like I was playing a lot of games and in my serve, I rotate a lot. And even at the pivot point, the sole wasn't wearing out. And they're relatively breathable. I mean, obviously, as a closed toed shoe, they get kind of hot. But at the end of the day, they were breathable enough that I continued wearing them. And as long as I aired them out after a game, I was completely fine. The one unique thing about Tolos is they don't have a tongue. So it's actually a sock top. It's like a full circle circumference top
Oh.
on the shoe. Um, so this is a pair right here. So there's no
Ooh, I
sock,
like it.
there's no tongue,
Hmm.
which I find really interesting because I have a high instep and a high volume foot. So getting them on the first time was a bit of a struggle. But what I ended up doing is I would fold down the back, put my forefoot in, and then use my finger as a shoehorn to bring the heel up. And the result of that is that this shoe fits super snug, and I don't even need to use the laces because it's basically like a sock shoe, and it's just, yeah,
Wow.
super
That's
flexible.
a
There's nothing
that's
to it.
a 3 millimeter stack height. Is that right? I think it's three
I'm
millimeters.
not.
I
I
think it
think so.
is.
I'm not a harm cincher, but it's super thin. Anyway, these are the only shoes I got. I use them in black and in white. I've probably played over 40 pickleball games in them. I played in a tournament. I love everything about them. I love Evan too, and his whole mindset about why he's making shoes. He used to be a pro hockey player, got injured, realized how important football or footwear was, and decided to be part of the solution. And so, yeah, Tolos are the shoes that I wear on the court for pickleball. I love them. I don't have any issues with them in terms of how they feel, and I'm extremely picky with footwear. Like even with the Vivos I was wearing, they were slightly narrow at the tip of my toes, and if I played a lot one day, I would get irritated on the lateral border of my pinky toe.
Yeah.
And so that was my indicator that like they're just not wide enough, even though they're the best thing I had. And since using the Tolos, no issues, no hot spots. I've literally played like 4 hours straight of pickleball one day in them, and I was completely fine, apart from them being a bit sweaty. But like I said, as long as you air them out and don't let them stay wet for long periods of time, they don't end up stinking. And I also think as just a side bonus, a secondary thing, they look really good. They're a really good
They're really
looking
cool.
natural shoe.
Yeah.
They're unisex, which I love because men and women's feet actually aren't fundamentally that different, I don't believe. And they only come in black and white, so there's not a huge amount of options. So he's put a lot of energy into creating one single great product for men and women in just two colors. And yeah, the Tolos Archetype One is my go-to court shoe.
Wow. Okay. So I'm am I correct when that you don't wear socks when you're playing?
I don't
Okay.
own socks anymore. So
Okay.
I don't ever wear socks. I find socks compress our feet quite a bit.
Hmm.
Even though they stretch, they still compress our feet. So I don't wear socks in any shoes, which means some shoes eventually get a little bit stinky, but I've kind of um, the OG, the most effective way to de-stink shoes after trying many things is actually sprinkle it, put a bunch of baking soda in the shoe, put some vinegar in, and then just soak it in water and let it just be there. And it actually it kills off baking soda and vinegar, the OG cleaning solution, kills off most of the bacteria, and then it's just a matter of keeping them dry, um, and you're good.
Yeah, I keep my tennis shoes in the sun for
Yes,
I leave them in the sun, which has the same effect. I mean, when you're using shoes like that, they just naturally, I think, just get stinky by nature, but stinky
eventually
by
they do.
nature. But
Yeah.
but yeah, I'm really interested. Maybe I want to ask as a caveat because 3 millimeters of cushion is so little that I just want to say that like when if whoever's listening to this, like these are
So
we're people who have been
there's no cushioning whatsoever. It's literally just
it's
the rubber
just
sole. That's it, and it's a super dense rubber sole.
yeah, so it's no more than 3 millimeters, I think. But I guess my
I don't think
point,
so.
Nikki Pop, is this. Um, if somebody's listening to this and wants to like try out natural footwear on the court, they're not going to just go to a Tolo. You know what I mean? Like, I guess I want your feedback about like somebody who is wearing unnatural footwear. They're not just going to switch to a Tolo and then think that they're going to be okay. Like you have to transition. You have to have you have super strong, resilient, mobile feet. So it's taken you a little while to build that, I guess is my point. Do you want to say anything about that?
Yeah, it depends what you're coming from. I mean, the first time you walk into a gym, you don't take the heaviest weight and expect to be able to throw it
Right.
around. You're probably going to hurt yourself. And so it really all depends on what you're coming from. If you're used to always being in a highly supportive, highly cushioned, very rigid shoe, your feet are just going to be very deconditioned. They're going to be weak, they're going to be stiff. And there's a period of adaptation where you have to recondition your feet. You have to get the joints moving again. You have to get the muscles firing again. You have to get your brain talking to your foot again. And so, yeah, I wouldn't advise anyone go from like a highly maximal, unnatural shoe to a Tolos and then blast out a bunch of physical activity. But I would also say that it typically doesn't take as long to transition as what most people would think. So I tell people to start with a pair of natural shoes as their daily drivers for a month and listen to their bodies. So if you go on an hour walk and you're like, geez, my feet are a bit sore, maybe next time pare it down to half an hour or do a bunch of recovery and restoration work with a cork ball or some toe spreaders to work on speeding up the process. But rule of thumb is if you can spend an hour or two barefoot at home moving around, you're probably going to be okay to start using them as your daily drivers. And then when you are starting physical activity, start with small doses of moderate intensity before you go into something crazy. And then running is a whole beast in and of itself. But again, it's just a matter of listening to your body, start slow, and just recognize that there is a period of adaptation where your body has to change and build some resilience and some, build mobility, build strength, build baseline conditioning to fight against gravity without support before you're able to do something more intense. So, yeah.
Okay. My court shoe?
That was like warp speed.
No. Okay. Hold, please. Okay. So my court shoe, I play tennis and I play singles and doubles. And I've never, since I went through the Foot Nerd training program and I switched to natural footwear, was before I had started playing tennis. Was before I started playing tennis. So when I started playing tennis, I never played in anything but natural footwear. So my go-to shoe is this. It's a Zero, and it's this one is the all-day black. It's made of leather. I haven't found the sweet spot of my court shoe, Nick, is the first thing I want to say. So I was wearing Zeros for a long time because that was the first pair I bought, and they were definitely wide enough for my toe box, and they worked fine, and they were like, they didn't have a lot of cushion. So I think it's like 7 millimeters, and then if you take out the insole, it's 3.5 millimeters. So I actually play. So one of the trade-offs for my body is I actually play with a mild knee injury. I had an ACL reconstruction, and then I have a Baker's cyst on the back of my knee. So if I cannot feel the ground when I'm playing, if I have any, so I tried playing in, I know a lot of our community members play in Ultra Solstice. That is like, that has like 16 millimeters of cushion, and it's a really nice wide toe box with like I don't know what it's, kind of a mesh sock top, and it's really nice, but it's too much cushion, so that so my mechanics are not good when I'm playing tennis, like how I land. So if I have that, so I have to have like the least amount of cushion possible so that I don't irritate that Baker's cyst. So I have this one, and then
Which is funny when you say that, because most people would assume if you have knee irritation, you should wear a cushioned shoe. But the counterintuitive thing is when you have cushioning on your shoe, you actually move in a way that's more harsh on your joints upstream. So that's an interesting thing that is counterintuitive and maybe not obvious, but I've found to be very truthful.
Well, I think what it does is it allows me to be honest when I'm pushing myself too hard, or when I'm not using, good mechanics on how I move. It allows me to be an honest mover. So
by not having cushioning, you mean?
By not having cushioning. So I still haven't found my favorite court shoe. I used to play in this one, which is an HFS Zero, but then I do this to it, like after 3 months. That's like,
gotcha. Air conditioning.
So I actually am still kind of in the market for trying to find, because those shoes aren't really designed for durability like that. I mean, I know Zero says that they have like 5,000 mile running, but like starting and stopping and the demanding nature of playing singles and doubles tennis is different, right?
Yeah.
So I'm interested in trying the Tolos, and in the meantime, though, those are my court shoes.
Cool. Yeah, I'm curious to hear how you do with the Tolos when you try them.
There's another brand I'm interested in trying too, which is the Milker Brothers, the wide shoe.
Yes.
Okay, so those two guys were elite level tennis players, and their next shoe, according to what I understand, is they're going to try to make some court shoes specific, natural footwear that are specific for tennis and court sports.
Yes, I talked to one of the brothers last week actually, and he said the next shoe that they're coming out with is going to be fundamentally different from anything that's out there, and it's going to be I mean, obviously he's biased because he's started the company, but he thinks that it'll really change the game in terms of natural athletic footwear. So I'm really excited to see what they come up with.
Me too. I'm excited. Did they say when that's happening?
No, or I think early next year.
Okay.
So
okay, so that's all
awesome.
I got.
Cool. We're under 25 minutes, so that's pretty good. So to everyone
Okay.
listening, we hope you enjoyed that.
Yes.
If you yourself wear shamas or you wear tolos and you have any feedback or anything to contribute, feel free to comment on the bottom of this YouTube video or post some input in the Natural Footwear tent if you're part of TFC's digital community. Thanks for being here. Thanks for your attention. We hope that was helpful. And yeah, free your soul with natural footwear. It's the way to go.
Talk soon. Ciao.
Ciao.